Hello, and welcome to Mystic Dog Mama, the podcast for soul-led dog mamas, where you'll discover how to best nourish your dog and yourself, mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Dr. Alexia Meller. Thank you for being here today. It's always a pleasure to connect with you guys. I just wanted to jump on and do another quick bonus summer series episode because I was having a conversation with Sharon Vincuilla of Holistic Dog Expert this morning. And if you're not aware of Sharon's work, she is amazing. I'm going to leave a link to her Instagram and to her website in the show notes. But we were talking about this idea of co-regulation with our dogs and how our dogs can provide an opportunity for us to support them and the regulation of their nervous system, and vice versa, where they offer us an opportunity to look at how to best co-regulate for ourselves. And we are going to be recording a podcast episode coming up later on in a few weeks or so. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that we were chatting about this morning in our own little kind of virtual tea, and how I think some of those things might be valuable to you right now. So that's why I wanted to share it. And one of the things that we were talking about was the value of asking questions and asking different questions. And what I mean by that was, and as I've kind of been left with food for thought from our conversation, I've been pondering this a little bit more. Something that I notice, and I'm wondering if you guys feel the same way, I'd love to hear. So either comment below if you're watching on YouTube or listening or watching on Spotify, or send me a message on Instagram at Mystic Dog Mama. But I'm wondering how you guys relate to this phenomena that I have often experienced in my life, where I notice that I'm approaching things and asking certain kinds of questions. And it might be like something even like, God, what's wrong with me? Or why isn't this working out? Or why is Lucky flipping doing this again? Or those kinds of questions that actually don't necessarily help me with what it is that I'm dealing with. And they kind of perpetuate this cycle of feeling like not enough, or like things aren't working, or they kind of limit the way that I'm thinking about something, or I'm approaching something, or what I see as possible in a particular situation. And as Sharon and I were talking today, I was reflecting back on my experience as an artist. And if you've listened to some of my previous episodes, you know that I have a background in participatory art and design, where that differs from a kind of traditional art practice, object-based art practice, because I was never making objects like paintings or sculptures or what have you, or for the sake of making something. But anything that I was making was made with the intention of catalyzing community and conversation. And the things that I was doing and making were actually often done within community. And the focus was really about getting people to think differently and talk about various issues. In my PhD research, it was specifically about how we relate to these big, overwhelming, complex issues like climate change at a personal level. How do we make that something that feels approachable to us? And how do we think about it differently? And one of the great skill sets that I both brought to and further developed in that practice was the ability to ask questions and then reflect on them differently, reflect on my life differently, in order to see what was going on from a different vantage point. And one of the questions I often ask myself, and that I was asking in those kinds of contexts too, is, and especially like difficult situations. So whether that's a difficult situation I'm facing with Lucky, or I'm facing for myself in my personal life, or I'm feeling triggered by something, but always looking for, when I'm kind of at more of a state of regulation, which is part of what Sharon and I were talking about, is what is the wisdom behind this thing, this experience, this feeling, um, this trigger, etc. What is the wisdom behind it that I'm being asked or being gifted to receive? And I was just sort of thinking about that through the day today, and other kinds of questions that we can be asking that actually make our experiences in our own life and with our dogs much more expansive, rather than feeling like we are closed down to particular options, or we are trapped in the way that we're seeing something. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up because I think it's an important thing to be doing now in our personal lives at the collective level when it can feel like everything in our lives is kind of chaotic. The world around us is chaotic. And then we've got our dogs doing God knows what that's kind of triggering us. Or maybe your dog has a health issue, for example, and it's like, what's wrong with the dog? And focusing on the issue, focusing on the problem. And I'm not saying to not do that. I understand that completely. But I think as well, it's kind of that both and sort of situation that when we've worked through that, is it possible for us to ask a different question in order to give us a little bit more insight on how we can approach the issue? So, with something like a health issue, for example, is rather than focusing on what's wrong, and I can speak from experience with this, where especially when Lucky was going through kidney stuff, I was monitoring any little thing to see if there was a sign of something. Like, oh my gosh, has it gotten worse? Oh my gosh, what's going on? And it just perpetuated this feeling of like dread and fear and anxiety. And I actually, at moments, really felt like I was missing out on connecting with him and enjoying him, and was so obsessed with trying to fix the problem. And when I was able to get into a state where I could offer myself a different perspective, I started asking rather than what's wrong with him or what's going on with his kidneys or what have you, what's right with him? What's going really well? Where have we had a really wonderful time today? Where is he doing better in his health journey than he was yesterday? And those can be like really small little things that we're starting to take note of. And with that thing around cognitive bias, that we will start to see the things that we're intentionally looking for. So we talk about that in kind of a psychological perspective, and even within the kind of more spiritual perspective, that we are what we focus on, we start to manifest. But also, and kind of bridging those two, Wayne Dyer would always talk about as well that this thing that you look at will change when you change the way that you're looking at it. And I think there's just such wisdom within that that's really useful right now. So if you're going through a hard time personally, if your dog is struggling with something, or if you're just sort of feeling overwhelmed with the chaos that seems to be the world today, I just wanted to offer that out there, that when you can come into a state of regulation, when you can kind of step back a little bit, because it's incredibly hard to do it in the moment. And I am not able to do that myself in the moment. But when I am able to get away from it and I'm not as triggered by something, see if it feels right for you to kind of ask a different question. What wisdom can you gain from this? How were you stronger in this kind of situation than you were before? How are you slightly different? Where have you grown? Where are you feeling things differently? Where are you seeing things differently? What is going right? All of those kinds of questions, I think, can actually be really helpful for also contributing to our sense of regulation and contributing to our sense of feeling empowered in any given situation. But it can also help us to see the situation from a different perspective, which can change the situation as well as give us more tangible, positive ways of approaching it. So that's just a really super quick thing. It was just on my mind, and I wanted to share that and see if that resonates with you too. Are you going through anything particular that, um, yes, asking some things differently might be helpful? Or have you gone through things in the past and you found that certain questions were really helpful for you to navigate that? I'd love to hear. Share again in the comments or message me on Instagram. And let's just sort of start a conversation around how we can look at things differently by asking different questions. All right. I hope you are doing well. Let me know if there's any particular topic you want me to focus on for future episodes. I always am open to anything that you guys would feel would be supportive for you. You can message me on Instagram at Mystic Dog Mama, or leave a comment in the YouTube video if you're watching on YouTube, or also you can leave a comment on Spotify and I will respond to that. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.